What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today, I'm fresh off The Last of Us Part 2, and I'll be giving my honest, spoiler-free review right here, right now. If you are interested in hearing our spoiler-filled discussion, you can head over to Make Every Death Count tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll have a full, long discussion surrounding The Last of Us Part 2. But let me start by saying, if you're one of the many people out there that are just dislike bombing creators simply because they like the game, go ahead and drop your dislike and roll out of here because you're not going to like my thoughts. If you are someone that's open-minded, wants to hear my genuine opinion, hey, sit back. I'll try to explain to my best ability, without spoiling anything, why I truly enjoyed The Last of Us Part 2. First of all, the graphics. Let's start there. The game, I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful game. And the fact that it's been in development so long, it's amazing that they pulled it off, and it seems like it's ahead of its time. A beautiful game, and if they remaster it for the next-gen consoles, I can only imagine. I can only imagine how beautiful it would be. Nobody can argue that. All right, that's the one thing we can all come to agree on. You hate the story or not, the game itself is beautiful. So, that out of the way, we can all agree there. But now let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay experience, to me, it's very similar to the first Last of Us, which in and of itself was complained about a little bit. Some people didn't like that gameplay style. I, for one, did, and I really enjoy the Last of Us 2 gameplay. They basically just took The Last of Us 1 and stepped it up a little bit. It added more of an open world component and the ability, a little more ability when it comes to customizing weapons and things like that. But it's a loot game, and I'm one of those people where I have to check every single corner. And for all those that watched me stream this, especially on Twitch when there's only like 5 of us there, I apologize, but man, I have to check like everything, every drawer, every corner. So I actually really enjoy that element of the game, and looting and finding your own things and making it happen. I feel like there's times where they should give you a little bit more. I feel like I was always fresh out of ammo, but that's okay. All in all, though, I like the open world component, and one thing I really, really like about that open world component is the puzzle-based escape room type of vibes that came from it. There's things, especially with the rope, this new rope element you have, you can grab it, you can pick it up, and you can throw it somewhere, and figuring out where to put that and whatnot. It's like, you know where you need to get. You just got to figure out how to get there. I like that a lot. I like puzzle solving. I love escape rooms. And every once in a while, I feel like you were just doing a little small miniature escape room here and there. I thought that was pretty cool, especially that rope gameplay. Anytime you got to use a cable or a rope and get involved in that, I thought that was pretty unique and was definitely a very welcomed experience from the first Last of Us to the second one. AI battles. They're all over the place. You're battling not only AI infected, but you're battling AI soldiers and enemy teams, so to be, and they're brutal, man. There are really challenging, sometimes truthfully extremely unrealistic with their insane accuracy and their quick responses, but the challenge that comes with that, and I was playing on moderate, I was playing on the middle difficulty, sometimes it smacked me right in the face, man. If you had a death counter on our streams, it would be up there, it'd be pretty high. But what's cool about that is that it's all checkpoint based, and you get to one point, and then you just keep dying, and you keep doing it over and over again. That element, I don't think the first game had that so much, not in terms of that difficulty and that battling AI. So I like that a lot. Yes, sometimes unrealistic, and that can be seen as a con, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But overall, decent, fun gameplay and challenging a lot of the times, having to figure it out. I also love the dodge component. Again, very similar to the first one, but being able to dodge and really get to work around and be strategic when it comes to fighting certain people, extremely effective. All around, gameplay, no real complaints there. I think the game excels in that manner, especially when comparing to the first game. Let's get to the fun part, okay? Now, the point you guys have all been waiting for. I tried putting it off, and let me tell you, this game was a hard one to stream, especially on YouTube. We actually did most of it on Twitch because it just the weird arguments that were breaking out in chat when you talk about the story of The Last of Us Part 2. It was hard for me to enjoy it because so many people were saying I was going to hate it. And I don't hate it at all. Like, not even in the least. So, yeah, it was a tough game to stream. I think a lot of creators are thinking the same thing I am. It's like, this is a game that all of us have been waiting, 6-7 years for. And some people are let down. And I think so, you have every right to be let down by some of those choices that were made with this story. But don't hate everybody that doesn't hate the story, okay? And that was a tough thing to deal with while streaming it. But the story itself is one that I actually find extremely powerful. It puts you in this position where you are constantly questioning the choices of all of the characters in the game. And I mean all of them, including your favorites. You question what Joel does. You question what Ellie does. And you really question what Ellie does. I mean, like, there are some times, especially as you push along in this game, the farther and farther you get, you're like, I don't know if that's what I would do in that scenario. Is she doing the right thing? That's powerful storytelling to try to get you to the point where you're starting to question a character that you love so much. I mean, that is really hard. And, some people are kind of just throwing this game away based on certain points, leaks that happen before they ever even touch the game. And there's so much you're missing out on if you're one of those individuals. If you're like, oh, this person dies, or this person dies, or this thing happens, I don't even want to touch the game. I think you're missing a tremendous opportunity to really see what effective storytelling looks like. You got to just take it in. Go in open-minded. I think that's the best way to look at it. But yeah, like I said, man, some people, it has a revenge story start. It has that kind of thing going on. But let me stop you there if that's all you think this game is. Because it's not. There's so much more going on here that is actually making you think and question your choices as a player every step of the way. And that's something, even the creators of come out and said that. It's like, you are doing things that are brutal, or maybe seem unnecessary, or seem to go against your moral instinct. And you have to pull that trigger. And you have to do that. And it doesn't matter who you are, even if you're playing as Ellie. That's a tough spot to be put in, questioning your choices as a player. They do that extremely well. And the fact that you divide your gameplay between characters makes that even more hard to accept. You're seeing the same story from two different perspectives, and you see both point of views. And that's a tough spot to be put in. I think that's exactly one of the reasons that people hate this game. It's you are forced to see things in a way that you may not want to accept. And that's powerful as fuck storytelling. You're bringing in new characters, and characters that you think you hate, you think you can't relate to, characters you may think even deserve to die. And then 10 hours later, you might be completely flipping that opinion around. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love this game. That is so difficult to do. To go from hating somebody to actually being like, I understand you. I get it. And maybe to the point that you really like that character. That is a tough spot to be in. And I think that's one of the reasons people don't like the game. Because they don't want to be in that position. And like I said, I totally understand why people can hate it for that reason. It's a hard storyline to accept and to take in. And sometimes maybe it's just not working for you. And so be it. I totally understand that. But I, for one, in my experience with it and taking it all in, especially because I was so mentally prepared for it because I saw all the hate the game was getting, I mean, I welcomed it with open arms and had an absolute blast with it. The characters. Let's talk about the characters. Because the characters that you love, the characters that you know, they're there. And not only are they there, and they're characters you know, but they're expanded on. Especially Ellie. You were seeing Ellie at this time. The game, I didn't mention this with story, it's flashbacks. There's a lot of flashbacks in the game where you actually play through these flashbacks. And man, that is extremely effective as well. I love the flashback element. Because it's unique storytelling. It's storytelling that puts you all over the place and it changes the way you saw things. You see something happen, you think you know it all, you get hit with a flashback or get hit with a different character, and it changes the way you think you know that story. Effective. I like that a lot. But yeah, you see Ellie growing up and she's becoming this young woman now, and she's not just that, you know, that little girl that tough little girl, but she's just not that character anymore. She's growing up, she's changing, and she's learning things along the way, some things that change her entire morals. And again, I like that a lot. New characters. Some people hate the new characters, which I think is such a shame. And I think a lot of that is jumping to conclusions. It's like, you know, you have Abby, for one of these characters that we see, who's just this super buff woman. And someone are instantly jumping to conclusions on her that, like, oh, she's just there, you know, to be the bully character and things like that. But all these new characters are all developed in their own way. And I honestly, there's no characters that I really don't like unless I'm not supposed to like them. You know, everyone's developed pretty well. And I really enjoy that element of the game, to take the old characters that we love and know, expand on them further, and mix them with a new character base that you grow to love. And some of them, especially, you grow to love. That's well done. You know, you can't hate that. Obviously, in this game, people will die. That is The Last of Us. That is any apocalypse game. You're going to lose people here. People are going to die. And yes, some deaths in this game hurt much more than others. None of those deaths go without packing a punch. Every death you feel. And I come back to that storytelling. It comes back to that. You can't have deaths in a game like this work unless you are developing characters properly. And the fact that so many of them, you know, can punch you in the gut, I think that should say a lot about that storytelling. And I think it deserves more credit than it gets. So all in all, those are like the breakdown of the game. Obviously, I really enjoy it. And I'll give a rating at the end here. I think it's a great follow-up to the first one. I know some people hate it. I understand why people hate it. And I don't blame them. That's totally fine. But I, for one, it's like right there with me on the first one in terms of storytelling and really cutting deep when it needs to and putting you in a spot where you're questioning everything. But let's talk about some of the cons. Okay, let's talk about some of the cons because, of course, like any game, including the first one, there are cons. All right? The AI, like I mentioned before, they can be really frustrating. And there's actually a part in particular, and if you were watching me stream this part, you know exactly what I'm talking about because I was so pissed off. Where you're dealing with a sniper, and a sniper that is just drilling your ass. I mean, he doesn't miss a freaking shot. He's all over you. And I'm sitting here as somebody who's done a lot of shooting in my day. As you know, someone who's done a lot of hunting in my day. And I'm like, there's no fucking way somebody is just clocking us around like that. It's fast. It was extremely accurate. And I feel like a lot of the AI are like that. So that can be extremely frustrating because these guys, everybody that has a gun in their hand in this game is an absolute pro with it. And I don't know how realistic that is, but because of the checkpoint system, like I mentioned earlier, you can kind of overlook that con because eventually you will beat these AI. You just got to learn their pattern and shit. But man, sometimes you could be frustrated as all hell. Some characters, at very, very specific times, and I'm not going to talk about any spoilers, so I can't really expand on this, but some characters at very, very specific times act in a way you wouldn't think they would. And like I said, I'm all for characters going down a morally incorrect path that it may be difficult to accept. And I do that really well sometimes, but sometimes you're like, are you fucking kidding me? There's actually one death in the game in particular. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you know how the game plays, it's a hard death to accept, okay? But that death happens in a way that this character shouldn't have made this mistake. This death shouldn't have happened. They flipped up a little bit. They said something they shouldn't have said, and it ultimately gets them killed. And I think if that would have been changed, if the death of this individual could have been flipped around a little bit to where it didn't come about because of a stupid choice or a stupid thing to say, I think that would be more effective. And it's not just that particular death, that particular moment. There's at the end, especially when I was streaming towards the end of the game, no spoilers here, your character starts to take steps and actions. There's two actually in particular here that are pressuring one character to do something that they wouldn't do. And I just don't think that pressure would be put on. It seems unnecessary. The reaction seems like almost childish. I'm like, I don't think that's how that would go out. And then ultimately what sort of gets to the end of the game, I think that whole choice to even have that event, it's hard to not spoil anything, have that whole event play out, I don't think that is a choice that this character, from what we've seen before, would take. Some things just seem out of line. But like I said, this is very few and far between. And for the most part, this isn't an issue. But when it does happen, I mean, it stands out like a sore thumb, and it can really catch you off guard. So that was definitely one of the cons of the game. And then, of course, my last like major con, I guess, it's really not even that bad if you think about it, but you do play as two different characters throughout this game. You're kind of, you get the same story from two different perspectives, but you play as one, and then you play as the other. That's it. There's a 10-hour chunk here, 10-hour chunk there, and then we start splitting it up a little bit right at the end of the game. And I think if they were to take that and make it where you don't play as a 10-hour chunk as each character, and you kind of like split up like hour here, hour there, and twist up that storytelling a little bit, I think that has potential to be more effective. I think you kind of get engaged more that way, and you start... The issue when you're trying to take in and accept a new character is the fact that you're thrown at them and you have to play 10 hours straight with them. Split it up. Break that up a little bit. Allow us to slowly start understanding that story. And I think that has potential to be more effective. I could be wrong. I just know it was really weird. Like, you get to the second part of the story where you're playing the next 10 hours of the game, and everybody in the chat was like, oh, here we go. Enjoy the next 10 hours. And I think if you split that up more, you can avoid that issue. But ultimately, those are my spoiler-free thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. I like it. I like it a lot. I love it. I think it was an absolute blast from beginning to end. Of course, some things hurt. Some things are hard to accept. But they challenge you. They challenge you morally. They challenge you intellectually. And that's why I like it, man. Like, it really puts you in a spot where you're constantly like, man, I kind of get your point. Or, oh man, I don't think you should do that. Why are you making that choice? Even for people that you love and know. That's something I really enjoy. And I really liked it. For me, 8.5 out of 10. Out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoy it. But hey, like I said, that's my thoughts. If you want to hear our spoiler-filled discussion, available tomorrow across all podcast platforms, make every death count, link in the description to all that stuff. It'll be right around 1 p.m. Eastern, should be available. Me and Elijah actually will be diving into it and really having a deep discussion about it and where the game gets it right and where the game gets it wrong. Should be fun. But yeah, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. And of course, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.